बिहारी जय राधा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा, प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा, जय प्रभुपदा। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र षट His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय। गौ प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चातति सतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि श्री श्री गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 33rd Chapter, Text 2. Devahūtir uvāca athāpy ajantaḥ-salile śayānam bhūtendriyārthātma-mayaṁ vapuste guṇa-pravāhaṁ sad-aśeṣa-bījaṁ dadhyau svayaṁ yaj-jaṭharābja-jātaḥ devahūtir uvāca athāpy ajantaḥ-salile śayānam athāpy ajantaḥ-salile śayānam bhūtendriyārthātma-mayaṁ vapuste bhūtendriyārthātma-mayaṁ vapuste guṇa-pravāhaṁ sad-aśeṣa-bījaṁ guṇa-pravāhaṁ sad-aśeṣa-bījaṁ dadhyau svayaṁ yaj-jaṭharābja-jātaḥ. Dadhyau svayaṁ yaj-jaṭharābja-jātaḥ. Devahūtir uvāca athāpy ntaḥ-salile śayānam. bhūtendriyārthātma-mayaṁ vapuste. guṇa-pravāhaṁ sad-aśeṣa-bījaṁ. dadhyau svayaṁ yaj-jaṭharābja-jātaḥ. Devahūtir uvāca athāpy ntaḥ-salile śayānam. bhūtendriyārthātma-mayaṁ vapuste. guṇa-pravāhaṁ sad-aśeṣa-bījaṁ. dadhyau svayaṁ yaj-jaṭharābja-jātaḥ. devahūtir uvāca bhūtendriyārthātma-mayaṁ vapuste. guṇa-pravāhaṁ sad-aśeṣa-bījaṁ. dadhyau svayaṁ yaj-jaṭharābja-jātaḥ. devahūtir uvāca athāpy ntaḥ-salile śayānam. bhūtendriyārthātma-mayaṁ vapuste. guṇa-pravāhaṁ sad-aśeṣa-bījaṁ. dadhyau svayaṁ yaj-jaṭharābja-jātaḥ. devahūtir uvāca athāpy ntaḥ-salile śayānam. bhūtendriyārthātma-mayaṁ vapuste. guṇa-pravāhaṁ sad-aśeṣa-bījaṁ. dadhyau svayaṁ yaj-jaṭharābja-jātaḥ. Synonyms. Devahūti uvāca. Devahūti said, athāpy, moreover, ajaḥ, Lord Brahmā, antaḥ-salile, in the water, śayānam, lying, bhūta, the material elements, indriya, the senses, artha, the sense objects, ātma, the mind, mayam, pervaded by, vapuḥ, body, te, your, guṇa-pravāhaṁ, the source of the stream of the three modes of material nature. Sat, manifest, aśeṣa, of all, bījam, the seed, dadhyau, meditated upon, svayaṁ, himself, yat, of whom, jaṭhara, from the abdomen, abja, from the lotus flower, jātaḥ, born. Translation. Devahūti said, Brahmā is said to be unborn because he takes birth from the lotus flower which grows from your abdomen while you lie in the ocean at the bottom of the universe. But even Brahma simply meditated upon you, whose body is the source of unlimited universes. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Brahma is also named Aja, he who is unborn. Whenever we think of someone's birth, there must be a material father and mother, for thus one is born. But Brahma, being the first living creature within this universe, was born directly from the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, the Vishnu form lying down in the ocean at the bottom of the universe. Devahūti wanted to impress upon the Lord that when Brahma wants to see him, he has to meditate upon him. You are the seed of all creation, she said. Although Brahma was directly born from you, he still has to perform many years of meditation, and even then he cannot see you directly, face to face. Your body is lying within the vast water at the bottom of the universe, and thus you are known as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. The nature of the Lord's gigantic body is also explained in this verse. That body is transcendental, untouched by matter. Since the material manifestation has come from his body therefore existed before the material creation. The conclusion is that the transcendental body of Vishnu is not made of material elements. The body of Vishnu is the source of all other living entities, as well as the material nature, which is also supposed to be the energy of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devahūti said, "You are the background of the material manifestation and all created energy. Therefore, you are delivering me from the clutches of Maya by explaining the system of Sankhya philosophy is not so astonishing. But your being born from my abdomen is certainly wonderful, because although you are source of all creation, you have so kindly taken birth as my child. That is most wonderful. Your body is the source of all the universe, and still you put your body within the abdomen of a common woman like me. To me, that is most astonishing." Om Tat Sat. Translation one more time. Devahūti said, "Brahma is said to be unborn because he takes birth from the lotus flower, which grows from your abdomen while you lie in the ocean at the bottom of the universe. But even Brahma simply meditated upon you, whose body is the source of unlimited universes." So this is the beginning of the last chapter of third canto, and this is a pretty popular chapter because many powerful verses come out of this chapter, which is titled Activities of Kapila. So here this verse is actually the beginning of the prayers which Devahūti is offering to Lord Kapila Dev. So we see in the previous chapters, starting from when Kardama Muni left for the forest, and then Devahūti was, she was saying, "I am so ignorant, confused, what to do, I'm an illusion." So she kinds of gives an indication to Kapila Dev that she needs knowledge. She is an illusion of not knowing what she is supposed to do when her husband is gone, what is the best engagement she can have. So then Kapila Dev starts the whole chapters one after the other. So you see in chapter 25, Kapila Dev glorifies devotional service. How devotional service is the best of all the engagements one can do when they get human form of life. Because animals, plants, they cannot do devotional service because they don't have the consciousness of who the Supreme Lord is, that they are the spirit soul and all that. So anyways, and then Kapila Dev goes on to describe a lot of things, including karma, fruitive activities, jnana. So he covers literally the whole philosophy in this maybe 9 to 10 odd chapters, from chapter 25 until here, chapter 32. And here, Devahūti, after hearing all those teachings from Lord Kapila Dev, now she is reflecting on those teachings, that how your teachings has benefited me, and she is kind of giving a summary of what she has understood. And we'll see in the subsequent verses how she glorifies the Supreme Lord, and in this verse how she is glorifying the Supreme Lord being the source of everything, material nature, and also Brahmā, from whom everything is created. So she is directly glorifying Kapila Dev, that you are that Supreme Lord who is the source of everything. Not just Brahmā, but of course Brahmā is the first creation, and after comes he creates various Prajapatis and planets and all that. But and then in the next verses she will glorify the holy name and how the holy name is the best of the processes. So this chapter is very, very powerful, and lot of the pivotal verses come out of this chapter. What is Devahūti receiving from Kapila Dev are the teachings. Siksha is a knowledge which one receives from the speaker. So like how you will see in Bhagavatam, Shaunaka Rishi and other sages in Naimisharanya, they were very inquisitive of spiritual knowledge. Of course, they were all sages. They were performing fire sacrifices for thousands of years. But then they were still looking for the knowledge, because Kali Yuga was, of course, it started, and they wanted to hear what is the best process which is available right now. Of course, they also understand that Krishna has disappeared. Krishna disappeared 5,000 years back. He gave this Bhagavatam. In one way we can say he left this Bhagavatam behind, which is as good as Krishna. And what is this Bhagavatam? This Bhagavatam is all full of siksha, knowledge, teachings. One person speaks, the other person listens. So like how Suta Goswami, he spoke in Naimisharanya, and all the sages got the knowledge. And then, of course, when Parikshit Maharaj was put in that situation, when he was asking what is the best thing I can do when I'm knowing that my death is imminent, is going to come very soon, what is the best engagement I can have? Teachings. Give me the teachings, hearing, shravanam. That's when Sukadeva Goswami, he comes into picture and he starts giving teachings. So you will see the whole Bhagavatam is all about teachings. One person is speaking and the other persons are listening. Sukadeva Goswami is speaking, Parikshit is listening. And here in this case, Maitreya Muni is speaking and Vidura is listening. So it's all about speaking and listening. And you will see in many, many cantos how Narada Muni is talking, giving the teachings to Yudhishthir Maharaj, to Pandavas, and all that is knowledge, teachings. So we see that how teachings is the core of our sampradaya. So if you look at Bhagavad Gita, introduction to Bhagavad Gita, there Prabhupada is tracing the disciplic succession. right from Krishna to Brahmā, Narada, Vyas, so on and so forth, until, Prabhupada. That teaching or that parampara is a teaching line, is a Siksha parampara. So Prabhupada traced back our teaching parampara, Siksha parampara. Of course, we also have Diksha parampara. Right? Diksha is where you get the secret Krishna mantra from your guru. That's one parampara. But Prabhupada emphasized Siksha parampara over Diksha, because that's what he's clearly defined. This is our parampara, disciplic succession. So that knowledge comes down from from a person who is more elevated to the persons who are need that knowledge. So that's how our whole parampara is defined. From the Supreme Lord, it comes down to the next level until it reaches spiritual master, and then spiritual master then gives that knowledge to the disciple. So while in our parampara Siksha and Diksha both are available, but we see that Prabhupada has given more emphasis on Siksha. If you look at Prabhupada's his lifetime, he was traveling all over the world. He traveled the whole world 14 times. But what was he doing wherever he was going? He was always engaged in translating Bhagavatam, giving commentary, concentrating on giving the commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, giving the commentary on Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna book. Why did he leave so much of knowledge? He could have just said, just chant Hare Krishna, that's all, finish. But he wanted to give us that knowledge. He wanted to give the full teachings of devotional service, bhakti. One can say, yes, Harinam is all complete. Why do we need Siksha? Of course, Harinam is complete. Harinam is all powerful. We see in the case of Ajamil, he chanted Narayana, and all his bad reactions of past, present and future were all gone in a second. But what happened after that? He didn't get prema. For prema he had to do sadhana. And sadhana is, the major part of sadhana is knowledge, inclusive. That's why we have Bhagavatam reading every day. That's why we have Bhagavad Gita reading in the evening. Because Prabhupada wanted to emphasize that Siksha teachings is the core of our parampara. So one has to look at this in a way that, and that's why GBC also had written this paper, that you may have your Diksha Gurus, who are disciples of Prabhupada and their disciples. But then Prabhupada is given the special position of founder Acharya. Why? Because he is the founder Acharya of knowledge and teaching. And that's why they also defined that Prabhupada is the preeminent Siksha Guru for everybody in ISKCON. So even if somebody has not met Prabhupada, they can have a direct relationship with Prabhupada. And that relationship is based on Siksha, teachings. Because all these teachings given by Prabhupada is always here. And one, when reads the teachings directly from his book, you are associating with Prabhupada directly. But of course, there is one catch there. That catch is, I can just pick up Bhagavatam and I can just start reading, turning over the pages. I may get the knowledge. But the problem is, our conclusion could be entirely different than what the actual conclusion given by Acharyas. Which means, unless we take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, even if we read the scriptures, we may end up in a completely different conclusion. And that's why Sanatana Goswami says, do not listen from Avaishnava. Avaishnava mukhod girnad puta hari katamritam shravanam na kartavyam. Do not hear from them. Do not do shravanam from Avaishnava. Sarpochishta yathāpya. If you hear from the same knowledge, same Bhagavatam, but if it heard from a Vaishnava who is not a Vaishnava, it is like a poison getting into your ears. Like how milk touched by a serpent becomes poison. Similarly, same Puta Hari Kathamritam. It is the same Krishna's pastime and it looks the same Bhagavatam. But when it emanates from somebody who is a Vaishnava, who is not a Vaishnava, which means he is not in the parampara, the conclusion could be totally different. That's why you will have, we have 6 darshanas, Shad darshanas, right? By Vaiseshikas and the yogis and Sankhya and all that. They all read the same Vedas, but the conclusion is different. Some of them believe that yes, Brahman is highest and they accept that. Some accept Karma Kanda is highest and they accept there is nothing beyond it. And that's why Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he defines that these are flowery words of Vedas. Why? Because these words are true relatively but not absolute. Right? Because in the Vedas it is said that if you reach heaven, it is eternal, you stay there forever. That's relative because the duration there is very, very long. You can stay there for a very long time, but it is not eternal. Because Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita, even if you reach heaven, you're going to fall down. Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam khine, so on and so forth. So he's saying even if you reach heaven, Swargaloka, you're going to fall down. What is the point of that? You're again coming back to the same. You're resetting it to 0. Don't go there. That's why Krishna is saying these are flowery words of the Vedas. So we have to read scriptures, but we have to read in the right perspective, right, with right lens, with the right conclusion given by acharyas. So that's why this reading through the instructions of the spiritual master who has the right understanding is very, very important. And that's why we have this knowledge given by Prabhupada in Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita and so many literatures. What is the conclusion? Conclusion is Krishna is svayaṁ Bhagavan. Etecha amsa kala pumsas Krishnastu Bhagavan swayam indrari vyakulam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. So whenever we read Bhagavatam, we have to read from that conclusion that Krishna is svayaṁ Bhagavan. And if Krishna is svayaṁ Bhagavan, how can he, for example, if you look at 11th canto, he's shot by a hunter. How is that possible? For a materialistic people who read Bhagavatam, they think Krishna was actually, he got shot by a hunter. But that's not the case. That is a leela by Krishna to keep them in that, so somebody who does not have the faith in Krishna, he will give that understanding. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, this Bhagavatam is like a Mohini avatar. Like how Mohini, she was so beautiful. You have the devatas and the demons, the demigods and demons, they were fighting for the nectar, and there was a huge tussle. And to resolve that conflict, Krishna appeared as Mohini. Krishna is so beautiful, but when he comes as Mohini, as in the form of a beautiful woman, the asuras were bewildered, and whatever she said, they followed, because they said she is so beautiful, she is so nice. So Mohini said, "Give me the nectar." She took the nectar, and what did she do? She gave it to the demigods, the devatas. Asuras never got the nectar. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, somebody who is a devotee and he reads with that devotion will get the nectar. But somebody who is asura, which means they don't have the proper faith, proper understanding, they will not get the nectar. They will end up with a totally different understanding. So we have to see that while we read Bhagavatam, we have to read it in the right perspective given by acharyas. Of course, one can say that sometimes Bhagavatam is, it may seem contradicting also sometimes. But then what do we do in this situation? We refer to Acharya's commentary, because Acharyas are authorities who clarify things. So in this case, when Brahma was, he was born, of course he gets birth from Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and when he was born, it was totally dark. He was like, what am I doing here? Who am I? No idea of what's going on. And of course it is described in second canto that he did tapasya for many thousands of years. Even here the purport is described, and Devahūti is saying that even though Brahma is born from you, he still has to meditate before he can get your darshan. So which means they have to go through a sadhana process, right? So there is a qualification which is required. So here Brahma, he does this tapasya, and then Supreme Lord appears. And what does he do? He gives teachings again. He is not giving diksha, he is giving teachings. Tene Brahma Hrida Adi Kavaye. The first verse of Bhagavatam is describing how the Supreme Lord is the source of everything. And because he is also the source, he is also giving the knowledge to Brahma for him to then create the rest of the universes, because he is a secondary creator, right? So there Krishna, after Brahma is getting darshan of the Supreme Lord, he is getting teachings again, because he is an illusion. Teachings. That's why jnana, this is not jnana of the jnana kanda or yoga. This is Bhagavad jnana. This is the sambandha jnana, which we're talking about, which is not a dry knowledge, but this is the knowledge about who is Supreme Lord, what is my relationship, who am I, and what is the process to attain, and what is the goal. That is prayojana, sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana. This is the core of the scriptures. Mahaprabhu described that if any scripture does not give what is sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana, sambandha is relationship with the jiva and the Supreme Lord. Abhideya means a process which establishes the relationship is abhideya, and prayojana is the outcome. What is the goal of that process? Sambandha, abhideya, prayojana, and all that is very clearly elaborated and described in Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's why Bhagavatam is accepted as the best of all the scriptures. And this conclusion of Bhagavatam is the highest, because it is the highest scripture. Why? Because when Veda Vyas composed all the Vedic knowledge, he divided the Vedas in 4 divisions. He gave the Puranas, he gave Itihas, he gave so many other things. He was still unsatisfied. He was still lamenting, why am I not satisfied within when I have done so much? This is described in 1st canto, 5th chapter. Then what happens? Narada comes in, his spiritual master comes in, and he describes, in one way he is chastising him. Veda Vyas ji, you have given the right knowledge, but it is not complete. You have given you have described Vedas, which actually has, karma kanda. People get attracted to that, and they just follow that. You have not created, or you have not given a scripture which actually establishes the special position of Krishna. Until you do that, it is like people coming together and cawing like crows. They're just saying ka, 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 ka. That those scriptures are just like the sound which crows make. Because what is the use of that sound? Nothing. So it is said that those scriptures which actually do not describe the glories of the Supreme Lord in full, all those scriptures are like places of pilgrimage for crows. Nayad vachas chitrapadam harer yasho jagat what is that verse? Na yad-vāca chitrapadam harer yasho jagat pavitram pragrinita karhichit na tadvayasam tirtham mushanti manasa naham nayad. Anyway, so there it is described that those scriptures which are actually not glorifying Krishna are like places of pilgrimage where crows assemble and they're just doing ka, nothing. There is no value of that. But if the same Bhagavatam is described by somebody like Srila Prabhupada, pure devotee, even if it is described imperfectly, which means if each and every statement are not perfect, but because it is glorifying, it is endeavoring to glorify that Supreme Lord, that will be heard, listened and glorified by devotees. You will still like it because it is glorified with the right intention. And it is very important. That verse actually Prabhupada describes in every canto of Bhagavatam. If you look at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, every canto, Prabhupada is describing that verse because that verse is very, very important. In preface, yes, there is go. So if you look at the preface of any of the cantos, that verse is described because that is the pivotal verse where Prabhupada says that even if my commentary are not perfect, but because I'm trying to glorify Krishna, you will still cherish it, you will still like, you will still Shrinvanti, Gayanti, Grinanti, Sadhava, you will still relish those descriptions. So Bhagavatam is that scripture that it will give you the highest goal, it will give you prema, but one has to get that knowledge in the right, from the right source, from the right spiritual master, who is actually coming in that disciplic succession. And that's why Krishna also describes in Bhagavad Gita that one has to go to that spiritual master and pranipat, tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. Somebody who is actually having that knowledge, he will give you upadekshanti, he will give you the right teachings. But there are 3 qualifications required. Pranipat, which means you have to surrender to that person. Pariprashnena, you have to ask questions. Pari, like how Krishna says, parityajya, sarvadharman parityajya. Same pariprashnena, pari means to thoroughly ask questions. So when you ask question to spiritual master, we don't ask questions that when will I get married, or if I will get married, or when will I get a good job, or something like that. We don't ask material questions to spiritual master. We ask about how can I serve you in your mission. It should all be spiritual questions related to bhakti. Of course, in this material world, because we have material problems. Of course, we can discuss those questions with our fellow devotees and all that. But to spiritual master, we have to be mindful of what we ask them. Because sometimes I've seen people asking this question. Like, I'm going through a lot of troubles. Can you see my astrological chart and tell me what's happening? What? I've seen that happening. And can you please tell me when will I get married? This is a very common question. And if I will get a right match, what? I mean, that's fine. You still have those questions. If you have those questions, you can go to an astrologer, not to a spiritual master. So spiritual master's whole and soul idea is to see how he can give you the right teachings. Because these teachings becomes the foundation. Because if you look at the whole mood of Goswamis, they are so engaged in Krishna consciousness, doing their bhajan. Mahaprabhu gave them several, we can say, goals to achieve. But one of them was to write scriptures. That's why Rupa Goswami wrote a nectar of devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Any idea how many years he took to write that? I think I was told 36 years. that much time it takes to actually get the self-realization and put that into paper. Why is he doing that? Because he wants to give the teachings. Because if you are just told your goal is prema, but if you just don't know what is prema, how does prema look like? I mean, what is the state of that person who has attained prema? What is the state of that person? Unless we understand that, how can we develop interest in reaching that? Right? So if you have to go from Vrindavan to Los Angeles, you have a goal. You are knowing that you are coming to Los Angeles. From India, if I am just saying, okay, I am just going somewhere in the US, it's very broad. It's a very broad goal. So for those kind of sadhakas, it is said that they end up in a very neutral state, shanta rasa, wherein they have kind of get rid of all their karmas and all that. They don't have attachment to material things, but at the same time they don't have very, very strong attachment to the Supreme Lord. Why? Because they don't have the mature prema manifesting. Why? Because the knowledge which is required to develop that prema is not there. And that is why Goswamis have given so many literatures, Prabhupada has given so many literatures. Why? Because we need the knowledge, and that knowledge is Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is emphasized, as I said, by our parampara traced out by Prabhupada and our acharyas. It's almost time. I'll just finish in a minute. So the summary is, here Devahūti, she is trying to glorify that Brahmā who was, who is unborn, because he is not born from a mother and a father, but is coming out from the Supreme Lord. Quite an, it's like, you cannot even comprehend, inconceivable how Brahmā can come from Supreme Lord. But that's how the creation happens, and then he comes to light. Why? Because Krishna gives him the teachings which he gets from the Supreme Lord. And that teachings when he gets illuminated. He becomes qualified to do his service of secondary creation, and then the whole history of Prajapatis comes out, and his 4 Kumaras and all that. And that glorification of the Supreme Lord, when he gets the teaching, Brahma gets the teaching, is given by Brahma in Brahma Samhita. How he describes that when he took darshan of the Supreme Lord, he is describing, he is glorifying the Supreme Lord, and is also giving the whole Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana in Brahma Samhita itself. So if you look at the starting verse of Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna, he is defining who that Krishna is, right? He is now defining, because unless you define who the Supreme Lord is, how will you have the relationship? That's the first step he takes, and from there on he goes on to describe and glorify his form, his qualities, his flute, and so on and so forth. And he describes his paraphernalia, his devotees, and then he also describes when somebody achieves prema, how does that look like? Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santas sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shyama sundaram achintyam guna swarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Shyama sundaram, he is clearly defining here, I got darshan of Shyam Sundar there, right there. Of course, here it says Garbhodakshai Vishnu, which is true. Vishnu and Krishna are same. In Brahma Samhita, Brahma is defining, I got darshan of Krishna. And in the same place, in second canto, where this description of Garbhodakshai Vishnu comes, interestingly, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also says, even though it is described Vishnu, but actually Brahma got darshan of Krishna there. Because he is describing peacock feather. Vishnu does not have peacock feather. He is describing Baraha and all that. Anyways, I'll close here. So one can receive this knowledge by reading Bhagavatam, but having the right faith. But there also is a trouble unless we go through the right path, right acharyas. But the easiest of all the processes is combining Harinam Sankirtan and Bhagavatam. because that's the process given by Sriman Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nam Sankirtan is the basis, and as we read Bhagavatam, we get more and more attachment, and attraction towards the holy name and Krishna. So while Bhagavatam is there, but Nam Sankirtan is the pivotal process that becomes the basis, and reading of Bhagavatam complements our more attachment to bhakti. Hare Krishna. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari. Questions? Okay, questions? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So I appreciate how you mentioned, earlier in your class, the sort of primacy of Srila Prabhupada in ISKCON, the important role he has to take for all of us, and how we, as devotees, we accept his importance. And that means that once we accept this, that Prabhupada's name becomes very powerful when we're teaching things, right? When we say, people, it actually becomes a weapon, for good or bad. People can say, oh, Prabhupada wants this, Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada did like this, and then suddenly people start pointing, the weapon of Prabhupada's name at other people, trying to encourage them to do good or leading them astray, whichever. It can both can happen.
Yeah.
So for example, if two godbrothers, if I have a disagreement with my godbrother, I can go to my Guru Maharaj and I can ask him to please help us resolve our disagreement. But because Prabhupada is not present on the planet in the way he was in the 60s and 70s, we cannot just go to Srila Prabhupada and say, okay, well, I say, Prabhupada, that you like apples, and he says that you like oranges, so how do we resolve these kinds of conflicts? I mean, sometimes you can just kind of take it and agree to disagree, but sometimes there are also questions of like very big ecclesiastical questions, spiritual questions, which have how can you say, very overarching implications for the society at large, which must be resolved. They cannot just be left in tension. So how can we pray to Prabhupada? How can we understand Prabhupada now?
Very nice question. Of course, there are, because bhakti is so broad, and we follow Navavida bhakti, deity worship, and chanting, and kirtan, and reading, and then I mean, there are situations where we end up in conflicts, like one person is saying something but other person is totally opposite end of the spectrum. How do we resolve it? Some situations could be very tricky to solve it. Some situations could be okay, you read a specific purport, or you read a specific letter, or you read a specific, or you hear a specific lecture, and then you try to derive conclusions based on Prabhupada's words. But sometimes it could become very tricky that even after hearing, things could still be very ambiguity. It could still be not very clear. It could still be ambiguous. What do we do in those situations? Well, I think what depends. One of the ways is go to our disciplic succession. Go before Prabhupada. See if acharyas have said something about that. So, one of the things, and I don't want to get into that topic now, is, does Jiva come down from the spiritual world? or they were always here? It's a huge topic, controversial topic. There is a different school of thoughts depending on what Prabhupada has said and what Prabhupada has written. I don't have an ideal straight answer. I think it's all contextual. One of the ways I have seen people, devotees doing that is, if even after reading from Prabhupada's purport, his letters, his lecture, if it is still not clear, go back to Acharya. Somewhere you may still have a chance, Bhakti Siddhanta or our Sad Goswamis may, because we have so much literature, we may have a chance to get, but still there could be a chance that you don't get a conclusion. So that conflict may still remain and you may still have to, but I think as followers of Srila Prabhupada, conflict, even if it is there, as long as it is not affecting the mood of Prabhupada, I think we can still live with conflicts. But if it's really going to affect the mood of Prabhupada, which means bring some other process in the forefront, like let's say take Nam Sankirtan in the backstage and bring something else, that will be totally unacceptable, right? So those kind of things could be, we have to just be mindful, because that's where we have to understand what was the real mood of Prabhupada, right? And therefore we have one group, we says we have to establish farm communities, varnashram, and there are other thoughts. And these have been going on for decades now. We still don't have a resolution. But the good part is, if we all can come together, even if we have conflicts, to serve Srila Prabhupada, to keep his mood and mission at the forefront, I think the movement can still go forward. But Prabhu, I don't have a straight answer. I must confess. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I think the way I understand also is that Srila Prabhupada is a transparent medium among all the different acharyas. He made a recollection of all the conclusions of all those that can be valuable for his Krishna consciousness movement. So we as loyal devotees of Srila Prabhupada, we follow that path. And of course the general rule, we have Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, but somebody
Yeah, I remember the words of Vaiseshika Prabhu. I think it was in Japan, maybe 2011 or 12. He was giving a class and he was saying that how in a car we have a navigation system. What is that called? GPS, Global Positioning System. But for us, for Bhaktas, it is GSS, Guru, Sadhu and Shastras. As long as we take shelter of these three pillars, Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, GSS, you will navigate to the right path. And that's what we do, Prabhupada and Acharyas and Sadhus, devotees and Shastras. So as long as we have alignment from these three pillars, corners, I think we are in the right direction. Thank you, Prabhu. All right. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल.